I'm going to do something a little uncharacteristic today. My goal in the next 600 seconds is to make everybody in this room more uncomfortable than you are right now. As I look around the room, I see one thing that we all have in common. We're all members of the same club, at least I think most of us are. I'm going to be very crude when I tell you what the name of that club is. It's called the Lucky Sperm Club. I want you to think about that. I got that from John Fiber, who's my wife's partner at Moore Davidow. And when he said that to me a number of years ago, I kind of went, yeah, John, I think you're right. Something very important happened last year. We all sit in the middle of this technology thing, and sometimes if we don't step back and look at it, we don't see it. What happened last year is the technology industry moved into the second half of the chessboard. Now, what do I mean by that? A chessboard has 64 squares. In 1966, the Apollo computer launched its guidance computer with 12,000 transistors, 4,300 ICs that each had 3 transistors on it. In the early 70s, Intel brought out the 4004, 12,300 transistors on one chip. Last year, their Xenon had 5 billion transistors on one chip. You do the Moore's Law 32 times, half a chessboard, you're at 4 billion. So we're ahead of the chessboard. The second half of the chessboard gets pretty interesting, because now we're not starting with 12,000 transistors, we're starting with 5 billion. And Moore's Law is still alive. What does that mean? It means that we now can build machines that can do about anything. How many of you have heard somewhere in the press that manufacturing is coming back to America? Did any of you read in that article the jobs are coming with it? So I'll talk to you about it this way, and I'd like this to stay as off the record as we can. 15 years ago, General Electric moved all of its manufacturing jobs for refrigerators out of America to Mexico because it took 40 hours of human labor to build a refrigerator. And at that point, I'm told that Jack Welch said, I've got to do this, but invent a new refrigerator that doesn't take so much labor. They did. They can now build a better refrigerator in 4 hours. Manufacturing is coming back to America. One person can build a refrigerator in 4 hours, 10 a week, not 1 a week. How many of you have ordered a Mac Pro? I ought to see a lot of hands on that, the new Mac Pro. Do you know where it was built? Austin, Texas. The first Mac built in America in the last 15 to 20 years. Why? Because it was cheaper to build it there than it was to build it in China. We've now taken technology, and let's go back and take a quick historical look. I went to Purdue University. It's in the middle of Indiana. I happened to give a talk there a couple of years ago, and I did some research. Beginning of the 20th century, 90% of the people in America had something to do with agriculture. And then we had the Industrial Revolution, and Henry Ford came along, and we didn't need those people on the farm because we increased productivity. Today, we're under 3% of the people in America doing agriculture, and they're N times more productive. And we put these people to work on assembly lines and in manufacturing, doing really hard work and creating a middle class. Now we've taken the second half of the chessboard and we've built machines that are on the verge of being able to build anything. So the first industrial revolution increased muscle power. Now you add brains to muscles, and you've got machines. I saw a robot that basically can replace the workers in China that are building the iPhone. So what do? We build these
started
robots.
out with what I wear to school.
We put them in American plants. Now we build the things here. Now you say, okay, now people go to work building robots. I was in a robotics factory. 3 people worked there. The robots build themselves. When you've got 5 billion transistors on a chip, and you've got Watson, how many of you remember Watson? This is the one that won Jeopardy. That was the beginning of something really important, because now instead of just extending muscle power, you're extending brain power. The current application of Watson is pretty awesome. They put it to work training it to be a doctor. Turns out they've added up that if you just read the new medical research that came out every week, it takes 160 hours to read just this week's new research. Not what's happened, just what's happened this week. What I'm trying to tell you is, you, me, we have created a technology that is very, very smart and is about to get a lot smarter, a lot faster than we think. It can make almost anything, and it can solve a whole lot of problems. I want to ask you to think about one question, because I think it is the responsibility of everybody in this room and everybody in this industry to worry about it, which is, if we can replace people with machines and they can do as good or better job, not only in manual labor, but in some of the thoughtful professions, then what is the role of people going forward? We have 7.1 billion people on Earth. Now, I have to admit, it isn't bleak. There's a whole bunch of theories about what could happen. I haven't seen one yet that I say, yeah, that's going to be it. But I think we are the creators of this technology. And what we've done with it, because the law of unintended consequences, is we've replaced a whole society of people who made a living doing honest manual labor. And we have to think about what it is we're going to do in the future that these people are gainfully employed. As I've walked around the room, and I've been talking about this for a long time, I hear people say redistribution. Well, that may be one answer, but they tried it in France, and what happened is most of the people who had something to redistribute it left. So if you have a challenge, all of you, everybody in here, I've looked at the program. It's the best program, Steffi, I think you've had in the 10 years I'm coming. There's a lot of great ideas here. What we need to do is, I think, we need to use our technology to solve the problem. Some of the great companies, and you saw one earlier, where you get a whole group of people together to think about something. I'm going to be quicker than 10 minutes. We need to use crowdsourcing. We need to make the whole world aware of the problem. They already are. And we need to invite input about how we restructure basically the whole human race. Because the jobs that existed for the last 20, 30, 40 years are going away, not because of a bad economy. You look at the Dow Jones and you look at earnings and you look at growth of top line, it's good. But we can do that without employing the number of people we used to employ. And as I tell you, we're on the second half of the chessboard. All it takes now is one move to go from 5 billion transistors to 10. That's one Moore's Law move. It took us 32 years to get from 1 transistor to 5 billion. But I live in Silicon Valley. Moore's Law is still alive. We can do the 10 billion, and we can do the 20 billion, and we can do the 100 billion, and we know how to do that. So the question is, when we've created that kind of world, what are we going to do about it? My question to you is, embrace that, and let's figure out an answer, and let's get a whole bunch of people that aren't just us thinking about it. One of the things I've learned, and I'll leave you with this, is that crowdsourced problem solving has led to a very interesting conclusion. Usually the people that come up with the best ideas are not the people who are the experts who are closest to the problem. So if we own this problem, if we make it very widespread, and we invite everybody that we can, and everybody means anybody who's online, and we went from a world where when you started DLD, Steffi, there were probably a couple of 100 million smartphones. And when we come back here 5 years from now, we're probably going to have only 1 billion people on this earth that don't have one. So let's use that technology and let's find out what the answers to these problems are. Thank you very much.